Hello and welcome here. 2023 looks like a tough year for The Flash and other DC heroes. What's actually happening though, is a microcosm of the tensions that exist in contemporary Hollywood, showing how a film is continually marketed throughout its life cycle and the patterns that are starting to strangle the business. The Flash reportedly cost $220 million, made $55 million domestically and $139 million globally on its opening weekend. According to conventional thinking, a movie must earn double its production budget to cover marketing expenses in order to break even, and bad reviews almost guarantee that it will be a financial failure. Naturally, there are more explanations for what happened in the DC universe than there are Earths, with each theory attempting to pinpoint the one instant at which everything went wrong. Barry Allen has been imprisoned in a cinematic purgatory that will take years to escape as a consequence of a combination of terrible luck, poor choices, and trends, not one of which is to blame for the Flash's box office troubles. Here are some reasons why it failed. Number 1. Ezra Miller controversies. Ezra Miller has been the subject of criticism for a number of years, which initially became apparent after a video of them strangling a lady went viral. Throughout 2022, there were several instances of unruly behavior, harassment, and violence that resulted in arrests, as well as accusations of grooming at their Vermont farm. This was quickly followed by other events that portrayed a bleak image and raised concerns about the Flash's future. It was even suggested that the movie may be shelved as a tax write-off after Batgirl and many other HBO Max originals were cancelled. Number 2. The absence of Ezra Miller and Michael Keaton from The Flash's press tour. The final marketing plan for The Flash with relation to Miller largely downplayed the star. Although Batman and Batman were heavily promoted in the trailers, Barry Allen is unquestionably the focus of the film. Sasha Calle did much of the hard work in interviews, with help from the producers, senior DC officials, and a steady stream of other celebrities who had seen early screenings and were enthusiastic about the movie. That makes sense in the context of the movie's release, but it misses a crucial element in popularizing any movie. A new movie's actors would typically be everywhere, appearing in interviews on TV and in publications, spreading quotations online, and taking over social media. The lack of a celebrity to promote severely harmed The Flash's chance to get discovered. Number 3. Early and fan screenings. A tentpole movie's typical release cycle is quite straightforward. A couple of weeks before the release, it has its LA, NY, and London premieres. After showing to the press, social media and review embargoes are lifted, and on the Thursday before the scheduled release, it becomes widely available for previews. The timing of this might vary somewhat depending on how confident a studio is in a film, but that's the overall strategy. The Flash chose an accelerated version that completely alters the dynamic. Before several press screenings and fan screenings in the weeks preceding up to release, the movie was initially shown to theater owners and press at CinemaCon in April. Even though the screenings were difficult to get into, with lines of ticket holders being turned away outside the theater, the overall result was that more people saw the movie and spoke about it before it was ever officially released. Number 4. The poor CGI narrative took over. The fact that The Flash's early screenings were labeled as unfinished may have been taken as a sign that the CGI wouldn't be too horrible. The VFX throughout the film appear clearly incomplete, starting with the opening scene as the Flash saves a maternity ward of newborns in free fall and continuing with the time bubble sequences, Infinite Earths cameos, and Dark Flash. Particularly distractingly rubbery are the human models, which bring to mind both Superman the movie and The Matrix Reloaded. Although director Andy Muschietti has defended some of the effects as an intentional view of the Speed Force, it has been speculated that Warner Bros. Limited the already high $220 million budget after realizing the box office potential of the film was uncertain in order to avoid further losses. Although there is some validity to this argument, it does not justify scenes like Nicolas Cage's Superman, where the actor exists solely to play himself. The Flash had poor CGI that was widely dispersed in a manner that the actual cameos did not, given its less spoilery overtones. It became the focal point of the internet discussion before to the movie's release, which was interspersed with video of the scene with the infant in the microwave. Number 5. Audiences don't love this version of DC Universe. The current incarnation of the DC Universe, whose inadvertent conclusion is provided by The Flash, started in 2013 with Man of Steel, and it's been a bumpy path ever since. It has, quite frankly, been a tiring 10 years with the roadmap announced in 2014, the backlash against Zack Snyder, his subsequent firing from Justice League and replacement with Joss Whedon, Wonder Woman's success, Henry Cavill's Superman's Will They Won't They, the Suicide Squad soft reboot, the release of the Snyder Cut, Dwayne Johnson's failure to alter the power structure, and 3 different owners of Warner Bros. Despite all of the change and debate, there is one aspect that remains constant, to the average person, This is all one and the same universe. There is just one reality, regardless of whether Justice League member is considered legit or whether Superman has a CGI head. By all measures, it has had a mixed response. The movie's foundations include the selection of Barry Allen, the setting of Ben Affleck's Batman, the Superman to which Supergirl should be compared, and the Battle of Metropolis. However, there isn't a deep-seated affection for the world to make the case for changing as it is. The enthusiasm of the crowd stemmed from reliving memorable moments when the Avengers visited important MCU films in Avengers Endgame. Because the DCEU never truly achieved it, the currency The Flash uses to engage viewers doesn't work. Number 6. The nostalgia does nothing. The response to the obscene usage of iconic versions of characters from earlier films and television series, particularly Christopher Reeve and George Reeves' Superman, was the most notable instance of nostalgia during The Flash's first weekend. Although these criticisms did gather traction as a result of fan screenings before the release, there is no obvious link between them and box office success. Michael Keaton accomplishes this. He was exploited to raise anticipation for a solo Flash picture as the centerpiece of the advertising from the minute he signed on. The complex reason why he doesn't resonate as strongly as other Legacy Quell appearances deserve a separate essay. Was the popularity of Warner Bros. Batman overestimated at a time when nostalgia is migrating towards the late 1990s and early 2000s? Or would presenting a 1989 Batman with all the symbols but updated sensibilities be more discordant than Adam West in Tim Burton's Gotham? Even the spoilers that did end up in the story more honestly point to this gap, which is a qualitative component of the movie. Nicolas Cage's Superman makes a very subtle allusion to Tim Burton's unfinished Superman Lives, which was changed to be pre-release advertising after it ran the risk of being leaked. The same can be said about Clooney, who formerly played Batman in a film that came out before The Flash's target audience. Number 7. Conflict and confusion with the CW. The CW TV series with Grant Gustin, a mainstay of the Arrowverse, is the most well-known version of the Scarlet Speedster and eventually outperformed its primary parent series Arrow in terms of viewership. The Flash TV show remained a staple on the network despite ratings declines in recent years following the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event. The series finale premiered on May 24, 2023, less than a month before the Flash movie is released. Although the two target audiences may be different, there was a lack of communication between them that complicated the message further. Neither the program nor the movie made it obvious how they differed in their points of view. Ezra Miller's appearance in the Crisis on Infinite Earths event and their hints in interviews about a Grant Gustin crossover adding to this. There is a deep-seated misunderstanding at work that was completely neglected, even if it may appear straightforward to people who are only somewhat online. In contrast, previous DC films like The Batman and The Joker were able to clearly define their own audience niche despite branding that adheres much more closely to the main series. Of course, the fact that they are connected to Batman, a figure who is much more well-known than any variation of the Flash, helps. Number 8. The best superhero movie ever narrative didn't work. One of the distinguishing characteristics of the Flash's marketing was to advertise it on quality, sight unseen, in the absence of a star and knowing that it was the end of this universe. James Gunn and Peter Zaslav, CEO of Warner Discovery, have both praised it as the best superhero movie ever made, and several other celebrities have agreed. Tom Cruise, who purportedly watched The Flash, phoned Muschietti to gush over the film. It is obvious that this opinion is not shared by anyone who have actually seen the film based on the snapback of critical reviews and the cinema score. The Flash is not a case like Shazam! Fury of the Gods as a movie that is actually splitting viewers, or perhaps more appropriately, uniting them in a collective shrug, despite the fact that it was a very enjoyable experience that was tarnished by larger reasons. This makes the early statements scream of a deliberate attempt to generate attention. A rejection of these corporate concepts resonates true, but the exact number is just too hazy to estimate. Number 9. Poor box office performance. Not just Marvel and DC are having trouble at the box office. In addition to the worry about superhero fatigue, there are other factors that make going to the movies less exciting, particularly for families: the COVID after effects, shorter release windows, increased living expenses, and a smaller selection of releases. Financial difficulties are inevitable if these two factors are combined with declining Chinese exposure. Juggernaut films have consistently underperformed because of a mix of several factors. Elemental maintains Pixar's loss trend after multiple years on Disney+, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts outperformed Bay more closely than Bumblebee, and Fast X went to VOD after just 3 weeks. The Flash is only a small component of a much larger trend that is developing, along with its siblings from Marvel and DC. A reasonable lesson to learn is the requirement for high-quality entertainment that sells itself with purpose rather than obvious franchise management dragged out unduly. The underlying causes, however, go considerably deeper than any one feature, as with anything. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. See you soon.